This path is completely random. I give it just one objective. No laws of motion, no forces, nothing. And yet, after a few thousand iterations, it becomes the exact path of a projectile. And then I do the same thing for planetary orbit. Start with a random path, give it some hidden objective, and it draws out the planet's orbit on its own. But what is that objective or principle, and how does it even work? For me, it all started with a simple question. Imagine that you throw a ball and it traces a trajectory that looks something like this. Or maybe like this. And yet in our universe that doesn't happen. The one trajectory that we see is the projectile parabolic motion. So the question is, why is that? Why is it that out of the infinite number of paths possible between one point and another, we only see this specific one? And many of you would rightfully say that it has something to do with the Newton's laws of motion. There is gravity, forces cause acceleration, and using simple calculus, we can figure out the speeds and the positions with respect to time, and the only answer we get is the parabolic motion. And yet, there is a deeper principle here. There is something that is much more fundamental than the Newton's laws of motion. And it has something to do with the universe optimizing for the best possible scenario. To understand that, I want to give you first a very simple thought experiment. So imagine this hypothetical scenario in which you wake up in the morning and you have to go to a college or university or office, but you live in a flat landscape. So of course you want to reach there at the earliest. So what you do, you figure out the only path that takes the shortest amount of time, and that is a straight line. Now, if I change the landscape and if I introduce maybe a river passing through it, and let's say you do not want to swim a lot, so you take the shortest path through the river and connect all the points, you end up getting something that looks like this. And now if I introduce something more, maybe a forest, based on all the obstacles involved, you would probably make a calculation as to the shortest path, which is not necessarily a straight line, but a very complicated curved path. In the back of your mind, you have probably optimized for time, energy, safety, etc. We do this kind of optimization all the time. You go to the market, you want to buy something, and maybe you bargain a little bit. You want to get the most value for the little amount of money. Or maybe you are preparing for an examination, so you selectively study a few topics in the least amount of time, but want to get the maximum marks possible. This kind of optimization is universal. But I want to do a quick mention here at this moment. I'm not saying that the universe is also thinking in that same way that you and I are thinking. That is beside the point here. What I'm saying is that the physical laws are such that the only physical trajectory that we end up seeing in nature corresponds to a highly optimized path. And that leads to the principle of least action. But what is action? Action is quite simply defined as the integration of Lagrangian with respect to time. Now, what is Lagrangian? Well, in most cases, conservative systems, for example, the Lagrangian is quite simply defined as the difference in the kinetic and the potential energies. That is simple to understand. And what the principle of least action or stationary action says is, I'm going to come to the difference in a moment, that the change in this quantity is exactly equal to zero. Now in mathematics, you would know that if you have a certain function and the derivative of the function is equal to 0, it usually means that it's either a maxima or a minima. And in mechanics, most of the systems that we study, we usually get a minima. So the projectile motion that I took in that scenario, the parabolic path that we get is actually corresponding to the minimum action possible out of all the possible scenarios. So how do we calculate it? It's quite simple. You take the path of motion, divide it into a large number of time steps, and calculate the difference in kinetic and potential energies at every single step, add them up from the initial point to the final point, and then that is your action. In most university classrooms, you would probably look into the mathematics, do an analytical calculation. But today here, I want to do a computational sort of analysis, a numerical analysis to study this problem and hopefully understand this principle a little bit better. So I'm going to do two things today. First, we are going to compare the action of the actual path to other theoretical paths. And second, I'm actually going to generate this particular projectile trajectory from random behavior by minimizing the action, which is a variation of a Monte Carlo simulation. So let's look at the first case. We have the projectile actual path of motion, but how do we generate new paths? For that, we have to keep a few things in mind, that the start point, the end point, and the overall time of motion should be exactly same. And to do that, I'm going to introduce a perturbation that will keep those things same but affect the overall path of trajectory. For that, we can add up a sinusoidal perturbation, A here being the amplitude of those sinusoidal perturbations, and check the action calculated for each one of these paths. So first we calculate the action for the actual path of motion and we plot that in the right hand side graph. If you look at the right hand side, you can see that the action is in y-axis, while in the x-axis you have A, which is the amplitude of the sinusoidal perturbation. We will find an interesting behavior here. So let's run the simulation and see what we get. All the theoretical paths are plotted in the left hand side, and in the right hand side we have their action values. What is interesting is that the amplitude of the sinusoidal perturbation decides how far the path is going to go away from the actual projectile motion. Essentially, the further you go from the actual path of motion, the action of that new path increases quadratically with the amplitude of the perturbation. What is interesting in this comparison is that the projectile motion action corresponds to the lowest point. So if I take some random path having a particular action and I do a small perturbation on that random path, the action of that path will either increase or decrease because it lies on the slope of the parabola. If I take a different path and provide a small perturbation to that, the action of that particular path will either increase or decrease. All the possibilities that we have on screen, providing a small perturbation to each one of them will either increase or decrease the action. That is because they are all lying on a slope. But the parabolic path that we have, the minima here, if you notice, if we provide a small perturbation, the action is only going to increase. And this is where you understand the difference between least action and stationary action. It is an extremum point. That means the slope here is 0. Any variation on this particular slope would only result in an increasing action. So the actual path of motion effectively lies on an extremum point in this particular graph. But what if I want to add multiple sine functions to this particular path? That means instead of just one sine function, let me include, let's suppose, 4 sine functions with different wavelength. That way we can get a little bit more interesting paths. And if I run the simulation again, the list of actions corresponding to different paths can be presented in this manner. The lowest action possible corresponds to the actual projectile motion, and for every other path, we end up getting greater and greater value of action. Now here you may ask why we didn't get a simple parabola like before. The reason is because we have multiple amplitudes of multiple sine waves present. If I plot the values with respect to A1, A2, A3, A4, I will essentially get a 5D surface, and in that 5D surface, the Newtonian projectile motion action will be at the lowest point, the minima of that surface. But we cannot plot that here, so I've simply added all of them together into one graph. In fact, you can take any other perturbation. The only constraint is that the start point, end point, and the time of motion should be the same. Now, this is a comparison of different trajectories. What if we could do something more? And for that, we have the next particular experiment. Now here, I want to actually obtain our projectile path by a process of randomization. Let me set up the problem properly. In the earlier example, we compared different paths and their corresponding action. Here, I don't want to make a comparison. I want to use the principle of least action, but I want to obtain the actual path computationally. So what we do is we just draw a random path. Let's take a straight line from the start point to the end point. I divide it into a number of time segments. Let's say I take 21 different points in this path, equally spaced along the horizontal direction. And I calculate the action by figuring out the Lagrangian at each point. And then what I do is, at each random point, I introduce a small nudge. So if there is a particular point in that path, I give it a random nudge. The random nudge would take up some value between 0 and a maxima that we can decide in the program itself. And now we calculate the action again. If the action is lesser than the previous value, we keep it. If the action is greater than the previous value, we keep it, but with a probability of e to the power minus del s upon capital T. Capital T here is just a parameter which decreases with every single iteration, essentially the Boltzmann parameter, which ensures that we end up getting different kinds of perturbations after every iteration, but with a exponentially decreasing probability of accepting greater action and 100% probability of accepting the lesser action value. We keep performing this over and over and over again until the difference between our calculated path and the original Newtonian path is very, very small. Effectively, this is what is happening here. We start with a straight line and we will calculate the action and see if it converges to the desired value over a period of time. So if I run this, we end up getting something that looks like this. The left-hand side is the actual path that is recalculated over and over again by minimizing the action. The right-hand side is the actual value of the action based on the parameters I discussed just a moment before. As you can see, over time, the straight line ends up coming closer and closer to the actual Newtonian path. And that is beautiful. I did not introduce any Newtonian values here. We only started with the action which contained the potential energy expression. That's all. We started with a random path. We minimized the action of that random path by introducing some small perturbations at every single point. And over a period of time, when we repeated those iterations, the path changed into the actual Newtonian path. And we can follow this kind of a procedure for any other kind of a trajectory. For example, here we have a planetary motion orbit or a Kepler orbit where we can perform the same thing, minimize action by randomizing an initial trajectory, and we end up getting a part of the actual orbit possible. So there it is. I hope you have learned something from this new way of looking at motion. I am Divyajyoti Das. If you enjoyed this new format of a video, please write in the comments and tell me what other kind of video topic you would like to watch. I will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.